this industry is all about people.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
I'm having a good day, Lindsay. I gotta say, we are loving that the weather is getting back to normal here. Like, holy cow, it was a little bit crazy for a while. So we are kind of heading back to normal, although there's a lot of white stuff still out there, but some of the ice is melting. So we are having a good day. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited for this conversation. It's one that I think I'm going to really enjoy because my entire career, believe it or not, I have worked remote. I was just talking about this with someone the other day. I have legitimately never actually commuted into an office, more so than just like visiting an office and being there. And I absolutely thrive in a remote environment. So I'm super excited. And I'm very excited that we have Jim Schubert to join us today as well. Hello, Jim.
How's it going, y'all?
Good.
Doing good.
I've been
I
waiting
can say
to
y'all
have
because
you.
I'm also below the Mason-Dixon line. So
You're in the clear. You're in the
Yeah.
clear.
I've been waiting to have you on for a while. Like, you were a tough guest to capture. So we're super, super excited to have you on today.
super excited to be here. And it's probably the same for my wife. Like, it took her a long time to capture me. No, I'm kidding. I was pursuing her hardcore. So just
That's
teasing.
hilarious.
Just kidding.
Well, Jim, something you may not know about our podcast because it's a recent addition is that we've started doing one trivia question at the beginning of every episode so that all of the good little nuggets of information that live in my mom's brain can like make it out into the world at some point.
Awesome.
So, you're welcome to participate if you'd like to. If you have no idea, feel free not to participate, and I will be completely wrong in a public setting. You can leave me hanging if you want. Offers out there. But Mom,
Awesome.
take it away.
All right. So since we're talking about people and we're remote and all those things, I thought it would be great to have a trivia question on what percentage of agencies do you think utilize virtual assistants? And I'm going to give you some options, okay? And this is our data. This is not scientific. I did not go to all 39,000 independent agents, but from our data, the people that engage with us over the last 4 years, they report to us in their P&L whether or not they use virtual assistants. We can see their expenses. So we've actually tracked this information. And for anyone listening who wants to know how scientific it is, that's over 1,000 agencies' data that we've taken a look at. So what percentage of those do you think utilize VAs? Do you think that it is 20%? Do you think that it is 5%? Do you think that it is 40%? Or do you think that it is 11%? Either one of you, if one of you has this burning desire to go first, please guess.
Yeah. So my first guess would have been 20%.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was going on in my head. But then you said 40 and I was like, ooh, I don't know. Maybe I would be hopeful, but I think it's actually 20.
You think yours 20. What do you think, Linz?
See, I was going 20 or 11, but I'm going to stick with 20.
You're going to go with 20. It's 11.
Oh, man.
I was
Yes.
almost there.
Okay, this was rigged. She has an unfair advantage because she's now officially an employee of yours. So that doesn't count. Congratulations.
You're right.
Lindsay.
That was the first thing I checked when I joined the team, Jim.
Yeah, I'm sure that was not on her onboarding. Yeah, that definitely wasn't. But isn't that crazy, though? The fact that your brain went to 40 and the reality is in some... I got to tell you, I started talking about the impact of utilizing VAs probably 4 or 5 years ago when I, spent a lot of time living out of a suitcase. And there are some places I would say, hey, how many in the room use VAs? And, crickets, or they'd say, I have no idea what she's talking about. What is a VA?
Yeah.
Now the room is a lot more people's hands go up, but it depends where you are. And, my data is not scientific. I know that I probably attract a certain kind of client, and but it is interesting. You'd be surprised how many people have not expanded to utilize VAs, and what a game changer that can be, because people are your
Oh
biggest
yeah.
asset. They're also your largest expense, and
Yep.
efficiency is the name of the game. So anyway, there's a little bit of trivia for you. How about that?
That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
I think that also makes a little sense though, because the data that you guys are collecting, not you guys anymore. I'm part of this. I'm
We,
part of this baby now.
we,
The
yes.
data that we're collecting is from people who are selling. And the people who are selling, like, people who are retiring is probably our biggest client set. They're not necessarily on the forefront of, onboarding new technology. And VA is technically like a new, I guess it's not a technology, but a new, innovative resource that agencies can use. So I guess
Yeah.
that makes sense that it would be lower.
Yeah, well, I will give you a little asterisk though, because this is something I'm super proud of. Only about 25% of the agents that get evaluation from us are actively thinking of selling. They might be thinking of transitioning internally, but there's a lot more people that
Hmm.
come to us because they want to buy or they want to know the health of their agency. So,
That's
yeah, I
good.
That's me.
know, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So Jim's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I fall in that category, right? So, I mean,
Yeah. I want to grow this puppy.
exactly. And tell me, like, where do I invest in order to do that? So, well, people
Yeah.
is the
Gotcha.
topic of the day, right? People, people, people. And, going along with the VA conversation, a lot of people had to embrace remote work. Are you in that category, Jim?
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah, tell me
Yes.
about that then.
Yeah. So I'll give you a quick, like very fast history to explain
Please.
why this matters for us now. So I grew up here in Atlanta, went to school up in Boston, and literally the night before my graduation for my master's degree, I was in my parents' hotel and my dad said, you don't really look that excited about what you're going to do. I was studying education. I had gone into higher education administration. So I was going to work in a university setting. And I had a job offer to run the student center at Dartmouth, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But long story short, I told them, I don't really want to be in the middle of nowhere in the dead of winter in New Hampshire for the rest of my life. No offense to anybody in New Hampshire. But he's like, well, why don't you come work with me? And I lost all of my Southern charm in the span of a half a second. I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. But the reason I'm saying this is because his response to me was very much what we're talking about today is, look, I get it. You think that I just go into the office and work behind a desk and it's a very stuffy job. He said, Jim, what you don't understand is that this industry is all about people.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know about you is that that's why you wanted to get into education in the first place. You love people. You love watching people develop and grow. And that's why you want to be a teacher. And I was like, oh my gosh, he gets me. So
Yeah.
fast forward, I guess 23, 24 years now. He said, we'll give it a year. And if it doesn't work out, no hard feelings. We're like 23, 24 years into this. Now he retired like 8-9 years ago and I took over, and the agency is about 33, 34 years old
Wow.
at this point.
Yeah.
And 80, I was doing the math actually on the way home today from the office. We are, I think 80% of our workforce. So we have about 40 employees and 80% of those people are working at least part-time remote. 70% of our staff is full-time remote.
Wow.
And not only that, but about 3 years ago, we were only here in Georgia, except for, I say 3 years. Okay, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
You have to add and subtract years for COVID and the way it makes your brain think. But pre-COVID, we had one employee that moved to North Carolina who'd worked with us for a few years. And fast forward now to where we are in 2025, we have, I think, people in 10 different states, which is unheard of for us,
what a difference.
at least.
What a
so
difference.
Yeah, we have to embrace remote because of what we have we've said that we want to be set up like. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I can't remember if I said on air or it was before we were recording, but I literally have never gone into an office every single day. I think remote work, at least for my generation, is, just the norm now. Like me and my fiance, we both work from home, and I couldn't imagine having to get in my car and go to work and pack my lunch like that. Those are foreign concepts to me.
This
like that's
blows
never
my
been.
mind.
No, it really does.
Yeah.
So I think you're opening yourself up to recruiting talent. You're also opening up your talent pool to such a larger group of people. I think it makes a huge difference when agencies are willing to let their employees work remote and comfortable with it.
Yes. And what do we know about innovation in the world, right? It's born out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we are the way we are right now. As people were emerging from their basements and bedrooms after COVID, it was a challenge to bring people back. Plus, we wanted to be really careful about, if we bring people back all at once and we know that we have people that have enjoyed it, we could face like having to replace half of our staff. Yeah. So I looked at my COO, my right-hand man, John, who I know you guys know. I was like, John, maybe we ought to sort of baby step this and just say, hey, raise your hand if you would like to continue working from home. And when people did that, what we discovered was, a lot of people wanted to have at least the ability to work part-time from home. And so we embraced that. And it actually allowed us to close down one physical office because we had like at one point 5 or 6 offices, and now we're down to 3 because as people have said, no, I want to work remote. And as those leases came up, we let go of those leases and we still have the people. So
So Jim, how have you managed culture? Because there's some people that obviously wanted to come into the office. I mean, you started this by saying your father recognized that you loved people. I love people too. And I have a fully remote company. Like every single person on my team is remote. But staying connected in a people-driven industry for people-driven people is tough. So tell me how you manage that.
Yeah, we manage it like a greased watermelon in a swimming pool. It is so hard.
Big time.
Trying to hang on to that thing. It's crazy. One thing that we did this past year that was one of the best moves that we could have made. And I have to thank you because you challenged me last year to actually make a lot of changes in my agency after you did evaluation for us. And like you said, I'm on, at least I think you were implying that I'm on the younger side.
You are
which
on the
I
younger
still
side.
kind of consider myself. Yeah. Okay. I'm not ready to sell. Let's put it that way. But I knew that there were a lot of things that we needed to fix and tweak and improve in our agency. And one of them was culture and HR. We had one person that was doing HR and finances and administration and IT. And I finally, this past year, said, no, this is my fault. I own this, but I have to take things off of you. And actually, there's a couple of things. We're actually, as crazy as it is, this person's title until this past week when we did our EOS annual planning, her title was head of finance and administration. Going forward, she's transitioning into a role of technology and systems and technology. And that means like workflows and increasing efficiencies and things like using VAs and bots and everything to streamline the processes. But taking HR off our plate, and now we're actually going to be transferring, I can't believe I'm saying this, accounting. We're going to outsource that, which is crazy. I never thought I'd do that. But from an HR perspective, we brought in a consultant that we found through our agency's CPA. Yep. And this consultant has been doing beautiful, wonderful things, switching us from using one particular payroll system to another that has a lot more robust capabilities with the culture type things built into it.
Nice.
But it's a challenge to be able to constantly find the activities and the touch points and the connection points to make people feel like they are part of a larger organization. But I will say that one of the biggest things that has helped us through this whole process to keep that sense of culture alive from pre-pandemic to post is having implemented EOS.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things.
So before we move off of staying connected, because man, I could go in a million different directions with that for sure. Before we leave, how we keep the greased watermelon in a pool, like how do we tackle that bad boy? How often do your people all get together? Do you ever have a place where everybody's in the same space? Do you ever have a time that you do that? You do not. Wow.
Well, we can't. I mean, we have people working as far as Michigan.
Oh, wow.
And not that I say we can't. We just, we haven't yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Yeah. But no one, to my knowledge, I don't think anybody feels like they need to or want to fly into Georgia or someplace central to meet up with each other. We do poll our people. We do ask them, what do you want? What could improve things? And that has never come up as a point. What people say is, can we do more stuff together on Zoom that's not work related? Sure. So like our HR consultant, one of the things she said was, I know it sounds crazy, but let's do a virtual breakout room. There's companies that will literally host breakout room sessions for your staff. Let's do that. Let's start, let's dress up in, your favorite team's jersey for the next state of the company meeting and have that be a talking point. Just little things like that. Getting my wife my wife also works in the agency from the capacity of a little bit of employee engagement, but also, I guess, sort of activity planning. One thing that's unique about us is for our producers, and this will answer part of your question. One way we do get together physically is for the last 17 years, we have had a producer incentive trip. And we've gone everywhere from, all over the Caribbean and Mexico and Puerto Rico and like you name it. This year, we're actually the first year ever, we're going to stay stateside. I was a little nervous about traveling to Mexico with recent, upheaval in different places. So it's just, so we're going to go to Key West, but it is consistently one of the things that our producers say is it is so nice to be able to get together with everybody in person and, have our spouses or significant others be there with us and really feel like we're a family. Because we refer to ourselves as the SSI family, the Southern States Insurance family. Yeah. But it's a challenge though.
So it's
funny.
To constantly think. My husband's worked remote forever. Like I can't even remember. Yeah. I think my girls might have been 4 and 5 when he went fully remote. Yeah. So when COVID happened and we all converged home, he was like, you're in my space. You need to go. Like you guys are crazy. Like what is happening? Why are you all here? And because Lindsay was in college. I was working at an office. My other daughter was in college. Like we were all suddenly very close all the time. And it was like, what is happening? But it's interesting that you say your producer trip. So because he's been remote, my husband sells software and leads a sales team, and there's incentive trips. And what's interesting is when you go away and you spend time and you eat meals and you do fun things and you go to dinners and it's multiple days on end and their spouse is there, you get to know the people you work with far deeper than you ever do sitting next to them in a cubicle. Like it's just different, 100%. Right?
Yeah.
Like the
nothing says bonding with each other.
Yeah.
Like seeing each other in your bathing suits.
Yeah, that's a big difference. It's big. Like you can't unsee that. That's what happens, So, but I joked about it when I was in an office, and you're just so focused when you're in an office that maybe you don't get to the personal conversations enough.
Yeah.
I actually knew some of those people better than my coworkers, which is interesting. 1 week trip with them. Now, granted, we went on the incentive trip a lot, so it was week after week, but year after year, like I knew their kids' names, I knew that their kids got
Yeah.
married, I knew that whatever,
Yeah.
and shame on me when I was in my office, I'm like on the phone doing whatever and hi, goodbye, and I'm super like I like people, but I never got the
Yeah.
same depth of conversation with a lot of the people in our team, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it doesn't have to be something big like that. Like for people listening or watching
Yeah.
this, start with something small. We just hired a really great head of client service who manages all the account managers. And one of the first, like literally day one or day two, she reached out to all the account managers and said, we are scheduling it's either monthly or bi-monthly, like coffee and chat. We're not going to talk about work at all.
Nice.
We're just going to get together on Zoom, wherever you are, and just, have water cooler talk or coffee talk.
Nice.
So
when I was with Indium, my like work bestie, like my really close friend at work, she ran like HR and like employee engagement type of stuff for us.
yeah.
And we would get together about once a month and we would play a game on our phone called Among Us. Yeah, like you can like create like a room and you can give everybody a code. So someone would put the code in the Zoom room and we would all play. And it was actually really fun because you're like getting missions done and you also have the ability to like kill people. So it was like kind of a little bit of
virtually.
Like, man, like you kind of made me mad today. I'm going to kill you. Like, it got some of that pent up energy out. But I think that's important when you work remote to at least have some type of intentional time together where you're not talking about work. Because that really is what fosters that trust between coworkers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key word that you use there is intentional, because if you don't pre-plan things like that, in our family, we jokingly call it forced family fun. My son's off at college now, but when it was the five of us together, every week or two, we'd have some kind of forced family fun where we'd go out and the kids would inevitably be moaning and groaning, but then we'd come back from whatever it was that we did, whatever activity, and they're like, that was fun. And those are the memories they have too. It's the same for your employees. If my dad always said, plan your work and work your plan. And that's how he built the agency to the size that it was when he handed it off to me. It's also what's going to lead us into the future with strong culture. There was a statistic that my HR manager, we separated that out. We had someone that was an assistant to the accounting manager, who's now our HR manager. She's been trained by the consultant that we brought in. And Savannah said, Jim, what's interesting is that I've been doing a lot of the interviewing and a big part of the hiring in the last couple of years. She said, what's interesting is before we started implementing some of the things that we've done now to improve culture, our retention rate on any given year when we would hire people, like let's just say we hired, just for even numbers, we hired 10 and maybe 5 of them stayed or whatever the number was. She said, we've increased that to like 85 to 90% employee retention. I was like,
awesome.
wow, that's huge.
It's actually one of the biggest expenses inside an agency is people retention, because it takes so much time to spin someone up and you spend so much time and energy training, right?
Yeah. And look, I love, I have some love for some of my recruiter friends out there, Tony Conyas, but y'all are expensive. Okay. And let's just call it what it is. I mean, it is a big expense. So when we cannot have to hire, and what we've also focused on is, and this is something you challenged me with last year, Carey, Jim, you need to start hiring even better quality people than you have now so that you can actually over time either shrink or maintain the number of especially support staff and add the revenue generating folks, or create more revenue generating activities from the people that you already have who are also doing account management. So 2025 is dedicated to you. So
I love
thank
it.
you.
I love. I hope you're hearing my voice in your head constantly. That's my goal.
I currently actually am, but yes, on most days, yes, I
so
am.
funny. So you talked about intentional, and clearly you're doing some intentional connecting with your staff, but many agencies that we're talking about that have VAs that are doing whatever are putting EOS into their agency to be intentional about how they run their agency. And you hear about it more and more. We definitely talk about it at the masterminds that I'm a part of. So tell me, for someone who doesn't know what EOS is or isn't utilizing it,
Yep.
can you tell me, A, what it is and why you chose to implement it and the impact that it makes?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that I found out about it was from a dear agency owner friend of mine, Billy Potter, who works with Snellings Walters here in Atlanta.
Yep.
Got to give him a big shout out. They have done amazing things with their agency. But Billy handed me, we had lunch maybe, 6-7 years ago. And he said, he was just giving me a bunch of books to read. And he's like, oh, you do this one, read this one. And one of them was Traction by Gino Wickman. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not really into cars. And he's like, no, this is about business. Oh, okay. So what it is it's essentially the amalgamation of all the best business books that you've ever read. But instead of just theory, it's literally a step-by-step. How do you actually implement these best practices of how to run a business into your organization? And so they create, Gino Wickman dubs this the EOS method, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Just like your computer has an operating system, your business should as well. And it really starts with people. It starts with big goals. It starts with core values. We talk a lot about, how do you run an efficient meeting? I mean, how many of y'all listening to this or watching this right now are just super excited about getting into a meeting with your fellow employees? Most of you, if you're not running EOS, are probably, doing the choke sign right now, right? Or the barf sign, whatever. But it has changed us. It has transformed our agency into, it essentially helped our agency put our big boy and big girl pants on.
Yeah.
And we are now, in my opinion, running with the bigger dogs because we've been able to create structure around how do we have meetings? What are our core values? Why does that even matter? How do we implement or integrate those core values? If those really are core, meaning central to what we believe in, how do we integrate that into every aspect of our agency's life, from hiring people to training people, retaining people, even firing people based on core values? And it's just been a tremendous change for us. What it's allowed us to do is really hire better people who come into an organization that have a lot better structure, that is geared towards constant improvement and a lot of good feedback both ways between employee and manager. Both ways. Employees give managers feedback every time we do feedback, which is game changing. But it's just been a phenomenal, for me, what it's done is it's provided us with the base that we need to now launch into what you're helping me do, what both of y'all are now helping me do. And that is to increase the snot out of my agency's value, so that one day, if my children, when I look at them and say, don't you want to come work here? And they say, oh, hell no. And we really mean it. That if I'm going to sell, then I have something extremely valuable. But also, if they want it, then it'll be really, really valuable for them. But no matter what happens along the way, because it's not about the destination, right? It's the journey.
Yeah.
We're creating tremendous value for everyone who we work with. When I drive to work in the morning, I had a tradition when I used to drive my kids to school when they were little. I went to confession one time. I'm Catholic. I went to confession one time and the priest said, what I want you to start doing is praying with your kids more. I was like, wow. So I started praying with my kids when they were little, and it was the funniest thing when they started like saying their own prayer intentions and who they were praying for and why. But I've continued that tradition, even though my son's in college, my girls are older. I don't drive them anymore. But every morning on the way to work, one of my prayers still is, please help me grow the agency as big as we can so that we can positively affect everyone that we work with, our employees, our carrier partners, our clients, our vendors. I want it to affect everyone positively. So that's kind of what EOS does for us. No, it's a long answer.
So I'm sorry if I missed this. Did you guys start EOS before you were remote or after you were remote?
It was kind of so we started it like, so the funny thing you ask, when I handed the book to John Hall, my COO, and said, I literally handed it to him as we were stepping foot into Mexican territory on the producer incentive trip in March of 2020, if that rings a bell.
Wow.
And I said, we need to do this. And then he actually has a photographic memory and he's a speed reader. So he handed it back to me the next day on the beach. And he was like, you're right, we do. I was like, God, that's incredible. But I say that to tell you that we literally started implementing it as COVID was beginning.
Got it.
And it was
so
tough.
How do you think, if you guys didn't implement EOS, do you think you would still be as comfortable as you are with remote work?
Absolutely not. We wouldn't know what to do. And the biggest reason is because we wouldn't know who we are. Because when we developed the core values, that's what changed it all. And I'll just tell you real quick, anybody listening to this, watching this, here's what you do. If you don't know what your core values are, get your leadership team or the people who you would trust the most in your agency to give you good feedback in a room for like an hour. Get a whiteboard and say to each of them, if we could dominate our industry. Well, first of all, you say, who are the people in our agency who, if we could clone them, we would dominate our industry, right? You put those names up on the whiteboard and you go back and say, okay, I want words and phrases. Tell me for each person, how would you describe them and their characteristics? You do that and you get a bunch of words and phrases. And then you go back and you say, okay, now let's, out of all these things. And when we did it, we had like 50, 75 different words and phrases up on the board and we struck them through based on whether they were similar to another. We either combine them, kill them, or there was a third something, but you basically whittle it down until you've got about 3 to 5 core values, if up to 7, whatever makes sense. I wouldn't go too high because it just gets watered down. But at the end of the day, we looked at it and we were like, oh my gosh, that's who we are. And what's the coolest thing about that exercise is that it's not like we looked at a menu in a restaurant and was like, oh, I think I'll have that and that and that. We actually said those core values are inherent in our agency because they're part of the people we already have and we're happy with those people. Makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
we're not just happy, like we're raving fans of those people. If we were going to clone, that's the people you want to do over and over and over again. We did this exercise in my last organization, and I'll never forget the person that we picked a lot of the qualities about. His name is Donnie Hauk. It was so funny. And I was like, man, I would hire that guy over and over and over and over again. Like he was unbelievable. So it's funny how as soon as you say that, it takes me to that room with the whiteboard and the person that you put on the board. Like it's the craziest thing, right? Yeah. But if you don't know who you are, it's really hard to know what your expectations are, how to set the goals, how to measure success, how to do a lot of things. So I love that EOS puts you through some foundational exercises to define that. And then build the trust to be able to build the organization that attracts the great talent that allows you to grow. Like it's funny. It's like a snowball, right?
It becomes what people have started to call a flywheel,
Yeah.
right? It feeds itself,
Yeah.
and then you can't help but grow.
Right.
And I think with EOS and like, I know I'm on y'all's podcast, right? But I'm serious. I can't, by the way, it's all your fault, Carey. The fact that I'm not currently recording my own podcast, because I have a podcast called Agents Growth Academy.
I know. We were going to ask you about it for sure. Yeah.
I took a hiatus a few months ago because when you went through the valuation with me and John last year and said, hey guys, here's where the holes are. Here's where you need to fill the holes in. Here's the things where you have major opportunity to take advantage of. I basically like got off that call. I looked at him and I was like, all right, man, I'm ready. Let's do it. But I knew that I could not try to dedicate the time that I had. I had also just not fired because they were good people, but I stopped using the people that like did all the post-processing for the podcast. You're lucky you've got a Lindsay. And Lindsay, I don't know if you have a people, but it takes a lot of time.
Oh, right? I have a people.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. And I just wasn't in a mindset where I was ready to hire somebody else to do that. So I was like, you know what? This couldn't have come at a better time. Like, I'm just going to put it on pause. But I mean, I can't thank you enough. We have been we've taken the base that EOS gave us. And I really feel like late 2024, mid to late 2024 was the time when we finally, even after a few years of having fully implemented EOS, we are finally ready.
Nice.
Because you gave us the roadmap of what we need to change. This is the launch pad time. And we just did our annual planning session. So for EOS, you typically do quarterly meetings with your leadership team. And then you'll do we did a 2-day, some people do it differently, but we did a 2 half-day planning session with our leadership team. And we basically started with, we used to do the 10-year vision, but we felt like that was too much. It's too far. Who knows what's going to happen in 10 years, right? So we now start with the 5-year vision and work down to, well, what is that like? If that's where we want to be in 5 years, what does it look like in year 3? What does the agency look like? Like literally some of the things we put on there were, need to, like, John is currently acting as the sales manager as well as COO, as well as our top producer. I was like, year 3, by year 3, we absolutely have to have a sales manager that's not John Hall. Right. And so listing things out like that. What does it look like? All the way down to 1 year, all the way down to next quarter. But when we did the 1-year planning, that was really where the rubber meets the road, because we can literally see in a list, these are the things that will launch our agency forward to get to that 5-year goal. And here's what we're just going to work on next quarter. Like we take a chunk of that and here's what we're going to work on next quarter. And then we just go. And it all goes, it works. It meshes so well with what I heard Dad say over and over and over and over. Plan your work and work your plan. Yeah. All you got to do is have a vision, have a goal, and plan it. Work backwards. It's amazing. So,
love it.
Well, I can't wait to see what you guys do. I feel like your energy is like infectious. I feel like I'm energized now, which I'm sure my mom loves hearing. She's like, great, go get some freaking work done, kid.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And we'll get ready because I'm about to send y'all all my financials and everything you need to do the valuation for this year.
Yay,
there we go. There we go.
That's funny.
Well, Jim, if there's an agency listening who also feels inspired or wants to connect with you, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah. Best place is to just find me on LinkedIn. Jim Schubert. I'm the really good-looking guy that it says Southern States Insurance. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, LinkedIn would probably be the best way.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm so glad you came on. Thank you, Jim. She's 100% right. Your energy is infectious. I always look forward to being in the same room with you. I hope that I get to see you several times this year. But thank you for coming and sharing with us. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.